had the Levitical law, and they made sacrifices, and they made atonement, which only took away their sins temporarily. It took away their sins temporarily. No, it did not. The blood of both goats and bulls have never taken away sin. Ever. Ever. And you need to understand the theological implications of that statement. Because it sounds innocent. Yeah, they offer these animal sacrifices, but all that did was temporarily atone. No, it didn't temporarily atone. It didn't atone at all. That's the reason why they had to keep having them, because it didn't. But what he's implying is that they had temporary righteousness, lost it, temporary righteousness, lost it. But I won't get into the whole topic, but when you go to and read Hebrews, it tells you plainly that the blood of bulls and goats could never take away sin, not even temporarily. That's an impossibility. And even in Hebrews, it tells you that if it could, it would have continued. But because it could not, it had to cease. So these people that call themselves Christians, what they do is they slip you a Mickey, and next thing you know, you're falling into this cult. Because there's something they're going to say that's going to appeal to you.
What's a Mickey?
Something you put in a drink. You get somebody all, yeah, you're probably too young to know what that is. Drug your drink or something like that, and you pass.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking
about.
That was an old school term for that one.
Yep. Brother Pat. Brother Pat, you there?
Thing about the tears and the sorrow that we were talking about before. Nobody likes I'm thinking about when I was a kid and I did something wrong, and the most terrifying words that my mom could tell me is we'll wait till your dad gets home and hears about this. Right? And that's with a loving parent. And I want people to consider this. Imagine going before a judge who's your enemy and not your friend. Mm-hmm. That's terrifying.
Right.
You're in big trouble.
It is. It really is. And so, yeah, you're right, brother. It really is. But getting people to understand that right now, and it's not about how do we do that. It's that we just preach the gospel. That's it. Let God do the rest. We just let people know and not get, it makes you emotional. And so that's normal, but we have to just do it and be as aggressive as the person we're talking to will allow. And hopefully they can be persuaded. Brother Rodney, go ahead.
No, just a little humor, because you were talking about the collab, and then you mentioned the Mormons, and one of my first jobs was at the great Chick-fil-A, but this is before standalone stores. Like, they were in the malls only, so I think they had more of a divine. But I would literally get written up if I even made a mistake and said thank you. You're welcome. The whole my pleasure thing. And so as I was looking up the definition and stuff, as you said, it just kind of made me laugh a little bit. So I was just like, I wonder if that had anything to do with us being off on Sundays, because I promise you, Saturday night, the rest of the food court could not stand. They're like, why are they cleaning up so much? Because we'll see you guys on Monday while you guys are in here holding them all down on Sunday. So it just made me wonder if that had anything to do with it. That's all. So.
Yep. This is Lisa. Did I miss you?
Nope, you got me.
All right. Savannah, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I was just thinking about when you said that I'm trying to word this correctly, but because because you said that the people that get sent to hell will take on the fullness of God's wrath, right?
Right.
But like I thought God's wrath was appeased when Jesus Christ died on the cross.
It was for his people.
Oh, okay. And then another question I had is like, so when we're all like glorified in heaven, there's a verse that says you know that we will mourn and that he will wipe our tears, right? So what I'm thinking is like, why are we mourning? We're mourning for those people that are being cast into hell, right?
No, not necessarily. I think the mourning that that passage is talking about has a lot to do with like what Job is going through, the suffering and afflictions and the persecutions and the trials of this life. You know, mourning over sin.
So I'm just trying to understand. So like, so mourning from our life that we lived on earth, because
Yes.
we're recalling it all when we're glorified, right?
No. There will be no more tears when we go to heaven.
Right. So
Can you turn the volume down on that thing because it's coming through really loud?
oh, sorry.
That's all right. Yeah. So you're talking about when the Bible talks about us, the Christians, mourning, right? And that he'll wipe away all of our tears from our eyes and everything, right?
Yeah. I thought that verse was talking about like our glorification when we get to heaven, that we will be mourning for.
No, we won't be mourning after we leave here. Our mourning is over here. When we leave this earth, our mourning is over.
Okay.
You see what I mean? There'll be the Christian will live in perpetual joy and happiness forever, for eternity. There will be nothing for us to mourn for. There will be no sin. There will be no evil. There will be no darkness. There will be no wickedness. There will be no depravity. We will be absolutely perfectly holy. There will be nothing. There will be no sorrow. There will be nothing like that. Nothing like that at all. So the mourning that Christians deal with, or just like we're reading in this book right now. Look what Job is going through. He was mourning. The mourning that we Christians go through are the mourning that we have through afflictions in this life, trials, persecutions, suffering, and more importantly, we mourn over our sin that still indwells us. Because, you know, like, I mean, how many times are we asking God, like, how many times do we ask God in our personal prayer life, you know, to help us overcome some fault or overcome some sin or overcome some, you know, things that we've been thinking about or that we shouldn't think about? This is mourning over our sin, mourning over our life, mourning over the sin of others, you know, mourning for people who are rejecting Christ, mourning for war, mourning for a Christian's life should be fraught with concern for people's lives, for souls. That's what it should be. Our lives should be characterized by that. Not only our own, but for the souls of others. And so we mourn in that regard. And it's a collective mourning. So that's what it's talking about. But when we die, when we go to be with the Lord, there will be no more mourning. There will be no more tears, no more crying, no more sorrow, none of that. That's all that will be gone forever. Can't imagine it.
I do have a question.
Sure.
So, like, when we die, we don't have glorified bodies yet, because there's one resurrection.
Right.
But we will still be conscious
Yes.
in heaven after we die, correct?
Absolutely.
But we just won't have glorified bodies.
Right.
Okay.
Absolutely.
That's what I thought. I didn't want to get that wrong.
You know where I always, one of the places I start, because usually with, because I have always, and this is something I've always done as a Christian. So like, when I find something in the Bible that is consistent throughout the Bible, what I will do is I'll start with one verse, the anchor verse, and then, that I call the anchor verse, and then I write next to that verse the next verse that supports that says that same thing. And then when I go to that verse, I write the next verse there, and that's how I began to develop memory over where everything was. And so it would be easy because I could open my Bible at one point and say, okay, we're talking about the atonement or perseverance or resurrection or whatever. I go to the first verse. I only have to remember the first one because I go to the first one and write in the margin, I would write down the next one. And then I flip the pages and go. And then over time, that's how I train my mind to remember, these passages. Now, my point in this was, like the question you just asked, Meg, was about, do we, are we conscious after we die, but before resurrection? And I always start with Mount of Transfiguration, because those weren't ghosts. You had Moses there and Elijah. They were really there. And so when you look at those passages, you have to address them. You said nope, Meg.
Yeah, I said no, they weren't ghosts. You're right.
Oh yeah. They weren't ghosts. They were actually really there, but they weren't in physical bodies. But they were there, and Christ knew who they were, and the apostles, James,
Peter, James, and John.
Peter, James, and John. They were there. They knew, and they were talking with them. Imagine that. They were alive. Now, Enoch, we know, was taken up in his body, but we know that he's not in his body now. But now this is another subject, but I'll say this. We know that Elijah and Enoch were both taken up into glory without dying. Now, this is another study, but I'm going to lay it out to you anyway. They were what the Bible calls being translated. They were translated. So when they were taken up, they were translated in such a way that their body could endure space or whatever it is they went, but they were translated. And so when people talk about the rapture, that's what that is talking about. The translation, being translated from your physical body to your incorruptible body. So the big deal that people make on translation has nothing to do, is not necessarily about the event. It's about what happens to the body. So when you read, the one part of the one verse where rapture is not the word that's used, but snatched away, it is speaking about the translation. You being translated. There's a spiritual translation, which is when you are converted and brought into the body of Christ. And then there's that ultimate final translation when you put on the glorified body. That's called the translation, being translated. So I hope that makes sense, but if it doesn't, I'll try to make it make sense in one of our other studies coming up this year, hopefully. But does that make sense to everybody who's listening?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I'm now you're gonna make me go into it before then.
Yeah, so really get a hold on that whole idea of what translation is, because that's the part that will explain what rapture is really supposed to be about, or it's being snatched away. It's being translated. That's what it is.